Hello, everyone. You are listening to The Success Palette, a place to discuss everything that you were not taught in school about how to be successful in the arts. I'm your host, Soda, and today we have Jonathan Howard with us to talk about the importance of sharing your unique story in your unique way when promoting your art, whether it's visual arts, music, your book, your podcast, whatever it is. So Jonathan, let's start out talking about what you do as a Instagram Reels coach and what it means to have a signature style.
Absolutely. So, yeah, my name is Jonathan Howard. I'm the owner of Success on Social. And one of the things that I help people do is develop their signature style. Now, what is the signature style? It's really just a title I give to showing up as yourself online. And one of the reasons that is so important is because everybody's doing the same thing out there. And it feels very much like there's no way to differentiate. So, your story being a major part of your signature style is the way that you differentiate. The things that you do differently, your life experience is all the things that set you apart from the rest of the world and make it really valuable for those that are looking to work with you, purchase your content. Those things that you do different are what's going to attract people. So I help people share their story, connect with that story, and make it so that people understand that you do things differently and you are special in a lot of different ways.
I love that and completely agree because I used to do these more detailed drawings all the time that tried to look like everyone else, do the prettiest drawings, but I started simplifying and adding more story into what I was doing because I mostly draw my guests for my podcast. And people actually like those drawings, those simple drawings with a story that, oh, this is this person, this is that person's story. And they like it more than this detailed thing that didn't have a story. So, can you talk a little bit about how being able to tell your story in under 60 seconds in today's social media can help?
Yeah, absolutely. So people hear me all the time and say, how can I tell a 60-second story? How can I tell an 8-second story? And the thing is, you've got to grab them with something that's going to hold their attention right from the beginning. And then you tell the meat of the story that's important to whatever aspect you're sharing at that moment in the middle part. And then you wrap it up with a call to action, which is generally when you're telling a story to learn more, to hear the rest of the story, or to gain more, context about this. Check out this place where I have additional aspects of my story. Because we have to kind of grab people's attention right now in the first 2 seconds. That's what the time amount you have to get somebody's attention. So, really getting their attention in the first 2 seconds and then being able to keep their attention while you're telling the important part of the story that you teased out at the beginning. And then telling them if they want more information, here's where they can get the rest of the story. Because nobody expects you to be able to tell your life story in 60 seconds. But you can tell important aspects that draw them into wanting to know more about it in 8 seconds, in 22 seconds, in 34 seconds, however long you really are able to have and you have their attention for. And the thing that's important there is to look at your numbers and see about how long your audience pays attention to your videos and use that average as the time that you're going to kind of try to hit to get your story out there.
Yes, I love that. And do you have a personal story that launched your career as a coach with helping other people tell their stories?
So I do have a story. And my story is that when I was way back working with my original employer, I was attacked in a hate crime. And in the aftermath of that, I learned about the power of stories. So I was left for dead in the middle of the street, and I often say that is probably the best day of my life because it actually allowed me to start doing things that I was really passionate about, which is share my story, and learned that actually sharing my story made a difference in lives, it made a difference in laws, it made a difference in the way that people were able to express themselves. So I learned from that experience that sharing your story makes a huge difference in the world. And honestly, I always tell people this: sharing your story can change the world, whether you believe it or not, and it changes the world one person at a time. So When you start to share that story and connect with people and understand the power of that story, it's incredible what you can do with it.
Is there somewhere that, because I know you have your own podcast, do you tell more details of your story and how, because it's a really cool story of how you were able to really help change a movement with something that is a very important human rights. Do you have, for anyone listening who wants to learn more about you and your story, is there somewhere that they could check?
Yeah, absolutely. I have my story fully written out in blog form on my website, successon.social. But I also have like a series of 4 videos that goes kind of through my entire journey with stories on my Instagram that is kind of gives people a good idea of where I went with my story. Because I did go from, getting the hate crimes bill passed, which was amazing, to having the ability to work on getting marriage equality passed in the District of Columbia. That experience, then a wedding contest, which who knew that was going to be the hardest battle fought, and then how I took that all into my business. Because when I was doing these things, I was actually not in business yet. I was actually just trying to do things with my current employer. So as I started to do this and made it into a business, I have my story of how I did that. But those are 4 on my Instagram profile.
Awesome. I will link those down below in the show notes so anyone can check those out. And I know a lot of us feel that we've never done anything amazing. We've never experienced trauma or feel like we've never changed the lives of anyone else and our story doesn't matter. What are some of the ways that we can realize that our story does matter and how we can use that to help others?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people feel this way, and it always kind of blows my mind because your story, no matter what, when you tell your story, it's going to impact somebody. It's going to help somebody. It's going to give somebody a kickstart. So it doesn't matter what you're really looking to share, it impacts somebody. It changes somebody's life. So don't worry about you thinking it's not important for that. Start sharing your story. And here are some basic things that change people's lives. Like if you started a business while during the pandemic and you were able to actually do that and be successful in doing that and reach other people, you changed not only your life, but you helped others change their lives and start their businesses. And who knows where that business may lead. If you started a podcast and you are sharing your story, like how you started your podcast, you might inspire others to start their podcast. And that may be the best thing that they ever did in their lives. So all of these little things that we do that we take for granted that, we think they don't matter to people, they do. And sometimes all they need is to see somebody else doing what they want to do in order to get them started in doing it.
Absolutely agree. And, there's a lot of different types of storytelling. There's origin stories, there's inspirational stories, there's stories about, what you plan to do. What are some different types of stories that you can tell in under 60 seconds that might be able to connect with people?
Ooh, great question. So any of them, honestly. And what I would say is founder story is a great story to tell. A customer story is a great story to tell. So the way that whether it's the problem that the customer was facing or customer or client or anybody that you're working with, like the problem they were facing, or you could even show the way that you help them overcome that problem. Those are great stories to tell. Another aspect of a customer story is a story is a customer review. So what they experienced from your service, that's a great story to tell. There's lots of opportunities to share different types of stories. The inspirational story, like this is where you want to be. The I always say this is the sad to happy story. That story of where people, this is where they are, this is where they're going, and you can show them how they're getting there. And that's an important story to tell when you're trying to sell something because you're the person selling happy. They're already sad, you're the person selling happy. So tell the story of how you get them to that happy.
Paula from the podcast Talk Shit with P decided to join us. I know she mentioned that she had a question for you, so I'm going to hand the mic over to her to see what it is.
Jonathan is known for talking about signature brand style, right? How does one identify their so-called signature style or brand in a way to understand how to keep rolling with that while they create their 1 minute video and stuff? So, how does one figure out their signature brand, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So, how does one define their signature style? And this is something that I talk about a lot. And it's different for everybody because everybody has different aspects that they are going to put into their signature style. I always tell people start with what's your weird? What's that weird thing that you do differently than everybody else? Or unique. You can call it unique if you don't like weird. But what's the weird thing that you do differently than everybody else? That should be at the core of your signature style. And most people already have their signature style pretty defined. The thing is, they've just got to do more of it because they're afraid to repeat certain things. They're afraid to repeat the things they say over and over again because they think people are going to get bored with them. They're afraid to show up in their own unique way all the time because people might think, oh my God, they're so weird. Your signature style is based on repeating those things that you do automatically more and more. It's also about talking about things in a unique fashion. You talk about things in a unique fashion, Paula. I mean, your talk shit with P is unique. So, highlighting some of those things that you do uniquely and connecting them with everything that you do is going to be where your signature style is going to help you stand out. Because when you start to show up as yourself on social media. And this is the big thing about signature style. It's about showing up as yourself. All of your content, all of you, everything that you do on social media should epitomize who you are. It shouldn't be a character. It shouldn't be something that you think people want to see. It should be who you are, the real person. And when you start to show up as that real person, you're going to start to actually attract the right other real people that love you for who you are, and that's where your signature style starts to pay off.
Yes, because when you try to be someone else, you end up having emotional conflicts. Like when I Paula knows when I tried to be my persona Chip, that was not good because Chip was kind of an asshole and I'm just super sweet and I just didn't know how to do that. So I love that.
So,
Any
in short, Jonathan is saying I should continue putting my tongue out and keep drinking my Budweiser.
yes,
Yes, ma'am, you should.
and asking questions that make people feel uncomfortable.
Oh,
We
I
love
love
that.
that. That's my go-to.
You know why, Paula?
I think that's a big
You know
part.
why, Paula? Because this morning you weren't in a room this morning and they were talking about you in a positive way and they mentioned your Budweiser. And that is what you want. You want people to talk about you. You want people to connect with you. You want people to know who you are. That's what happened today, just because you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you for mentioning that, Jonathan, because I listened to the replay, and as soon as Jackie, which I'm so mad at her, because people are not supposed to know I'm going yet, even though I already did this confirmed like yesterday, literally. But when she mentioned it, and Alex's first thing, like they went to like, oh, Budweiser should sponsor it, and people wanting to be in the car. I was like, oh my god, people really know me. So I literally screenshotted that part and I'm gonna use it to tag Budweiser and Road Mike because people gave out ideas. But the fact that people know, like, yeah, Budweiser should sponsor because Paula is gonna be in the car. And literally, I told Jackie because we are driving in a big SUV and it's just two of us. So she was like, "My backspace has so much. We're gonna have a cooler and ice." I'm like, "Yes, that cooler is gonna be filled with Budweiser and Red Bull."
There
So
you
it
go.
was it felt like I was at home. It felt like I was at home.
That's your signature style. There you go.
I love that so much. So let's say I'm a D&D artist. I draw people's D&D characters and bring them to life. Is there an example of a good story? Like what kind of story would be best with that? Like maybe how you brought that person's character to life?
Yeah, you could share how you brought that person's character to life. You could show behind the scenes of actually bringing that character to life because that will light many people up and give them like a whole different view of what you're doing. You can show the reaction of the person once they have that D&D character drawn to what they've always imagined it to be. That reaction is powerful because that's the happy that that person is experiencing. They're experiencing something that they've always imagined coming to life. that's the happy. So, like, providing them with that insight, that will help you connect with other people. So, all of those things I think are great and powerful. And then obviously after that, the person's reaction, the review of them, how they experience it, how they use it after it's come to life, like whether it's a PFP or whatever they wanted to use it for, however they use it and how it makes them feel, because that's what you want with stories is you want to connect with those emotions. So how it makes them feel after they've got it, I think is really important.
And what are some ways that we can get the viewer or the listener to feel like they're included in the story and not just watching it, and make them want to take that call to action because they feel included in whatever it is that you're sharing?
Well, that's where the emotions come in a lot of times. So you want to share in an emotional way, like this is the experience that they're having. Bring them in on the experience as a whole is going to get people interested. So think about what I always tell people, where were you 6 months ago? If you want to bring people on a ride, on an experience, where were you 6 months ago? Where are you now? Bring them on that emotional track with you so they can see. Now, it may not be a 6 month, track for a piece of art being created. It may be a year-long track, whatever it may be, but bring them on that path with you. Show them the story from behind the scenes. Show them the emotions that are involved in that story. All of those things are going to connect. And you do that with both the visuals, the words that you use, and just how you deliver a message, because I can deliver a message when I'm storytelling and I can slow my voice down and I can bring you down into a moment where you were experiencing all of this strife and you didn't know how you were going to be able to ever see that light again, and you were starting to panic and get overwhelmed and you didn't know what you were going to do and how you were going to do it, and then all of a sudden you came across this one thing that brought a whole new perspective to you and you were like, oh, I get that now. Wait, I can do that. And that's going to bring me to this new level. And I'm going to be able to break through and see something that I've never seen before. And then I finally get to that point where I break through and I see it, and my life is completely different. And just the way you change your voice and your tone can bring people along for that
I
ride.
was about to say, like, the way that you talk fast, then you talk slow, and then you change it up, like, I never thought too much about how your voice can make you feel like you're on a roller coaster. What are some other ways? Like, do you incorporate music, sound? What are some ways that we can also include it in addition to using the voice inflections?
Absolutely. You can use music, you can use sound, you can use video clips of something that's actually happening, B-roll of you doing something. All of those things you can do. I tend to not use music and sound and stuff because especially when I'm on Clubhouse, it's really hard for me to think about the multiple things that you could do. So I do the things that I can control within myself, which is the voice, the tone, the inflection, the speed of the dialogue and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll use a secondary person, like I'll be telling a story and I'll bring somebody else in to, ask them a question and then feed off of that to continue a story. But you can absolutely use video clips, you can use B-roll, you can use all those things. And sometimes I do that in like short form videos because even just changing how close you are to the camera will change the way people feel. Changing the expression on your face will change the way people feel. So when you're doing that in short form video, you can throw in those aspects as well.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And I know sometimes we tend to ramble a little bit. I know I tend to ramble. And I know it's important to keep our stories concise, but also, give them the information we need. How do we know what information to keep out? How do we make sure to keep the bare essentials without rambling or anything like that?
So when you're telling a story live, you're gonna ramble a little bit. It's gonna happen. What I always tell people to do is make notes of the key points that you want to hit and try to stick to those points. When you're doing it for short form video, ramble on and then edit away. So, what I usually do when I'm doing a short form video where I'm telling a story, and the most recent video I posted is me sharing a story about somebody else's signature style. Now, it's about a minute, 22 seconds long that it was edited down to. When I put all the clips into my editor, it was over 5 minutes long. So I rambled, absolutely rambled, but then I picked the best parts of that and made it so it told the story consecutively. And the way that I do that is I know that I want to talk about this part here first, and I want to talk about this part here second, third, fourth, and fifth. And then I talk about those parts in their entirety. I have a clip for that, and then I go to the next section. So I'm talking about something different in the next section because I know that's what I want to talk about and kind of bring it along in that way. That makes it easier for me to then break it up into what I want to talk about. I got to pull it from here. What I want to talk about second, I pull from here, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on. So that's how I do it with short form video because you can edit out anything you don't want on short form video. When you're talking about it, you're sharing a story live, you're going to ramble a little bit, but make some notes. Know that you're going to want to talk about these things and know kind of the order that you hit them because that's important for bringing people along in the story. But remember, an easy story is an engaging story. An easy story that somebody can find relatable is the best story you can put out there.
I didn't think about how so you have multiple short form videos that all kinda go together like a series, is that right?
I do have some that go together like a series. The one that I'm talking about, the last one I posted, was just one video that I put together, but it had four different sections of it. So I wanted to make sure that I hit those sections. So I created the video by recording the first section, then the second section, third, and the fourth.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, I wanted to make sure. But for those who do wanna do a series, who want someone to binge watch all of their short form videos or a section of their short form videos, what are some ways that we can have individual clips that lead you to watch more clips?
Well, I think one of the ways is obviously having a theme that is something that's interesting for people. The other way I generally say is one, just making sure the number is on the cover of your reel, of your short form video, so that people know it's one of something. Like I have a series of rants. Series of rants is literally what it's titled, and it's one of 100, two of 100, three of 100. So people know to look for all these other ones. So that's another great way. A great trick or tactic is to end your previous one on a cliffhanger and always end on a cliffhanger to bring them into the next one. So if you maybe have four things that you want to talk about in this particular one video, talk about three and a half of them. And then in your next one, you start off with the conclusion of that third one, and then you bring it on to do a few more, and then again conclude on the half of one. So make sure it's actually a cliffhanger that people are going to be interested in and want to go to the next one, but that will keep them moving to the next video, to the next video, to the next video.
Ooh, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that this weekend. Before we end and I ask where people can find you, I wanna ask Jonathan, do you wanna talk about your podcast? Because I wanna make sure people know about it because I have been listening to it and I've been learning quite a bit.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're listening to it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I have a podcast with Mimi Langley. It's called Coffee Social, where we talk about anything business and social media and really try to give you, some insight as to what we've learned in our experience and share with you those lessons that we've learned so you don't have to make the same mistakes and different things like that. It is a very casual podcast, but it is enjoyable, I think. And we share, tips and tricks and all the things that we're learning as we go, including our podcasting experience. So it feels like every 10 episodes or so, we share a little bit about what we've learned in the last 10 episodes so that you have some opportunity to, if you're a new podcaster, learn from us and don't make the same mistakes we made and learn how important audio is and all those things. So we're sharing a little bit of that as we go along. Plus, of course, a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of fun, and our coffee in the morning.
Yes, it is a great podcast. I love the chemistry, love the information. But yeah, Jonathan, do you have any final thoughts before we end?
I will just say thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. I love being able to be here and share a little bit of what matters and how to share your story. And you can always find me if you're looking for help with sharing your story over on Instagram or here on Clubhouse. And I have my signature style playbook that will also help you if you're looking for help with that. And I'll share the link with you so you have it as well, Soda.
Thanks again, and this was fun. And one of these days, I'll be able to interview Mimi and make her a cute little cartoon too. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Success Palette with Jonathan Howard, all about how to share your unique story in your unique way. All of his information will be in the show notes down below. And remember, you could go to thesuccesspalette.com to check out all of my social media links. Now, while I do have an Instagram account for the podcast at The Success Palette, I also have an Instagram for my art at Sodakan Art, Khan. And that's where I have most of my live interviews. So if you want to catch those, they are quite a bit of fun, especially if we have some interaction there. I also plan on posting more clips on the Success Palette Instagram page as well. Thanks again for tuning in, and let's make this week a successful one. Bye.